Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Steve DeVore from Antioch Christian Church with this week's 3-minute message. Today's message is from Matthew chapter 21, verses 10 through 17, and it is a highly condensed version of the sermon from Palm Sunday, March 28, 2021. When Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the colt of a donkey, the crowd welcomed him with feverish exuberance because they anticipated an instantaneous transformation in their government and their physical welfare. But Jesus immediately went into the temple and overturned the tables of the money changers, drove out those who were selling animals to offer as sacrifices, and rebuked the religious leaders, and then he left town. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were furious. But from God's perspective, it made perfect sense that Jesus, the Messiah, would immediately restore the temple to its God-given purpose as a house of prayer and worship. Jesus said, "My house will be called a house of prayer," and to this Mark adds, "for all nations." This is an exciting text because here we discover 5 divine priorities for God's people. Priority number 1, God's people must prioritize lost people. The outermost court around the temple, which was where all of this took place, was supposed to be reserved as a place of prayer for the nations where they could discover what Israel's relationship with God was all about. But the importance of making God accessible to all people of all walks of life had become lost due to the selfish concerns of the Jewish religious leaders. Revival and renewal in the church begin with a renewed vision and a deep compassion and concern for lost people. Priority number 2, God's people must prioritize purity. The money changers and animal sellers were nothing but glorified cheaters and conmen, and the real purpose of the outer court of the temple had been lost completely. Worship is a time to confess our failures and shortcomings to God in humility and contrition. It is not a time to try to legalistically manipulate God into giving us something that we don't deserve. Priority number 3, God's people must prioritize prayer. It is written, Jesus said to them, "My house will be called a house of prayer." Of all the acts of worship available, prayer is the one that truly brings us into the very presence of God. Priority number 4, God's people must prioritize power. When we are prioritizing lost people, practicing purity, and praying actively, we should expect powerful and exciting things to happen. After Jesus cleansed the temple, it says the blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them. Priority number 5, God's people must prioritize perfected praise. After these things took place, the children were shouting in the temple courts, "Hosanna to the Son of David." The key to perfected praise is not in having the perfect method or the style that we like the best, but it is all about having pure motives. That is why the praise of children was so precious to Jesus. If you want to know more about these 5 divine priorities that can cleanse your personal temple and transform your life, as well as bring revival to the church, listen to my sermon from March 28, 2021. Meanwhile, may you have a great day and a blessed week.